Hey, Viking fans, this show was brought about by pure inspiration. I'll tell you about why next in 3, 2, 1. Gather around, Skull brothers and sisters. This is Skull World, brought to you by Minnesota Sports Talk. I'm your host, Dave. You can follow me on Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook at Skull World. Make sure you go down and subscribe below. Click like, leave a comment, ring the bell so you don't miss a show. I appreciate you doing all those things. That way, my message gets out there. Skull Vikings. Let's bring Skull to the bowl. Yes, my friends, let's bring Skull to the Super Bowl. Let's go Vikings. Now, I am all about one thing today. It's Chuck Foreman's birthday. Happy birthday, the legend, the ambassador of Minnesota Viking football, Chuck Foreman. This guy is gracious. Tommy Kramer's making a name for himself. These guys, Carl Eller, all these guys making a name for themselves as legends of the Minnesota Vikings and are ambassadors of the game. No more greater of an ambassador to Viking football than Chuck Foreman. I was lucky to get his autograph at an autograph signing back when I was a teenager. It was awesome. In high school football, when I came in as a freshman, I wanted number 44. It was available. Someone else, yes, you, Jason Pavlish, you were able to get it before me. And I ended up with Ahmad Rashad's number 28. So that's how that went. So let's talk about the legend of Chuck Foreman. Let's bring him up here. This is Chuck Foreman. Picture University of Miami. Let's read a little write-up about him. I believe he was inducted to the Miami Hurricane Hall of Fame. Played for him from 70 to 72. I was born in 73. That's when I became a Viking. Chuck Foreman has the extra move to don't teach. I don't know. I miswrote that. Chuck Foreman has that extra move to don't teach. I think it meant you don't teach. You have to be born with it. I don't know why they either misquoted him or he said it wrong. But anyways, his head coach said he has the moves that you can't teach, and he's born with it. These were the words of former Hurricane head coach Fran Kersey describing the God-given talents which made Chuck Foreman such... Oh yeah, this is just all full of misspellings. I think it was probably the writer. A vital part of the Hurricane offense during the 1970 and 1972 season. A prolific weapon as a pass receiver, a blocker, a punter, returner, and more importantly, a running back. Foreman's name is still listed in the Hurricane record books. Season records for net yards gained, kickoff return yards, touchdowns, and total points still rack in the top 10. Chuck Foreman was one of the greatest running backs to ever wear the orange, green, and white for the University of Miami. Foreman began showcasing his athletic talents at Frederick High School in Frederick, Maryland, where he was a two-way player in football and also lettered in basketball and track. Among his talents as well were playing trumpet and singing, things he continued while at U of M. Following his brilliant career in the warmth of Miami, Foreman headed north to the cold of Minnesota, where he set the Vikings and the NFL on fire. Scorpio, as he was known from his college days, twice earned All-Pro honors. He participated in 3 Super Bowls and rolled up 5,807 yards rushing during his 8-year career with the Vikings. Now, why is Chuck Foreman a legend? I put it down in the video below, the description below, a highlight reel with some people that talked about him, and it is 100% true that this man was an innovator of the NFL game of football. Why? Because he could do it all. He was the all-purpose back in the NFL before they had a name for it. He calls himself the Doctor of Spin, and you'll see that in the highlight reel. But Chuck Foreman, my friend, was an innovator of the game, and this stat, 5,879 yards, does not do him justice. Does not do him justice. That was passed by Robert Smith. That then was passed by Adrian Peterson. I don't know if it'll get passed by Dalvin Cook. Oh, it probably will get passed by Dalvin Cook, but obviously Adrian Peterson might hold the Viking record even after Dalvin Cook is gone. But that, my friend, is Chuck Foreman's write-up by the University of Miami. Wonder when that was written. It doesn't say. But just to give you an idea of the greatness, in 1975, Vikings had one of their best years and didn't make the Super Bowl. It was the Pearson push-off in the NFC title game against the Cowboys. Was arguably the best team the Vikings ever put on the field. The leading rusher that year was O.J. Simpson with 1,817 yards. He had like 400 yards rushing, so it was an amazing year, 2,200. This is in 14 games. Chuck Foreman was third with 1,070, but he was second in all-purpose yards because that year, my friend, he almost had 700 yards receiving. Imagine having Dalvin Cook right now with 1,700 yards after game 14. Game 14. That is how great Chuck Foreman was. How big of a legend he was. I was 2 years freaking old. I can remember Chuck Foreman, 78, 79, but, I think he was with New England in 79, but 78 was, I had his football cards. I remember Chuck Foreman, and it stuck with me watching highlight reels, NFL Football Presents, all that stuff through the years, just growing to know the legend of Chuck Foreman. And this is how I remember him, Chuck Foreman. Go watch the video below in the description and get an appreciation for the history of your Minnesota Vikings, Chuck Foreman, the legend. Now, he was 1975 was the All-Pro first team for the NFC. O.J. Simpson for the AFC. Other players, Franco Harris. Franco Harris had more yards than him on the ground that year, but he had like 400 less total yards. Franco Harris. What is holding back any NFL Hall of Fame talk about Chuck Foreman is that he had a short career. Unfortunately, he's had a short career. Early days playing for a bad Minnesota Viking team that grew into a champion, a potential, an NFC champion, an NFL champion, but not a Super Bowl champion. Chuck Foreman, great NFL player. Give you an idea of what his career was like. 73, 362 yards. Receiving, sorry. Let me go rushing. 801 yards rushing. 362 yards receiving. And I must remind you, 14 games, and linemen could not block with their hands until the mid-80s. So he played in an era that linemen had to block like this. Go look at the highlight reels, man. Defensive players could head slap, could horse collar tackle, could clothesline you. They could do anything to you. But the offensive lineman had to block like this. It was brutal. I even had an electric football game. I think it was the Steelers-Cowboys. And the offensive linemen were positioned like this. That's how they had to block back then. So it is so much more impressive. Put these stats in a 16 or 17 game season. It would be amazing of someone be able to have the rules we have now back then of how good Chuck Foreman would have been and may have extended his career. What potentially. We got 1973, and then 1974, 779 yards, or 77 yards, 586 receiving. Amazing. 75, his biggest year, 1,070 rushing, 691 receiving, in these years, 9 yards per catch, 11 yards per catch, 9 yards, 10 yards per catch. Amazing. 41 yards and a touchdown in 76, but I'm getting ahead of myself. 76, 1155, his best rushing year. His receiving that year was 567. So 2 years of greatness, 75, 76, and a third year of greatness, 1,112 yards, receiving only 308. I don't know what happened that year, but still one of the best running backs in the game. It does drop off. 749 yards in 1978. Receiving 396. Yes, started to drop off. And then 79, 87 attempts. He only played 12 games, 223 yards, and had 147 yards receiving. So he had and then he ended his 1980 ended his career. Looks like that was the first year they had 16 games, or maybe 79. I don't know. He only had 12 games in 79. He played 16 games in 1980. But you can tell that these were amazing stats for 14-game seasons back in a day where linemen could only block like this. He was an innovator of the game. He could block, he could run, he could catch. And he was not only a finesse back, but you will see in the highlights early on of him bowling his way into goal line touchdowns, taking the hits, bouncing off, and still scoring. This man, happy birthday, Chuck Foreman. And thank you, sir. Yes, sir. On his birthday, for some odd reason, he followed me on Twitter and has inspired me to do this video, and I'm gonna send it to him in his DMs. Thank you, Chuck Foreman, for being an ambassador to NFL football, to Vikings football, Ring of Honor, Viking Hall of Fame, Chuck Foreman, and God wish you make the Hall of Fame someday as an innovator of NFL football. The complete back started with you, man. Skull Vikings, Chuck Foreman. Happy birthday. Cue the music. Thank you, Viking fans, for listening. Make sure you catch my other episodes. Also, make sure you subscribe, like, and leave a comment below. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Skull Vikes.